The Sol system, humanity's ancient cradle, had transformed beyond recognition over the centuries. Gone were the familiar planets that once orbited their star. They had been dismantled long ago to construct the magnificent Dyson sphere that now encompassed the Sun completely. This engineering marvel, stretching nearly 300 million kilometers in diameter, housed trillions of post-human entities and captured every bit of energy their star produced. Administrator Day One's crystalline form rippled with iridescent patterns as he processed the constant stream of data flowing through his consciousness. His body, a perfect fusion of organic and synthetic materials, allowed him to perceive reality in ways his distant ancestors could never have imagined. He stood at his favorite spot in the Central Archives, a vast chamber with walls that seemed to stretch into infinity, filled with the accumulated knowledge of 500,000 years of human civilization. The data streams that usually flowed smoothly through his awareness suddenly shifted, causing his crystalline form to flash with alert patterns. Something had triggered the outer detection grid, a network of sensors extending light years into space. This was unprecedented. For 50,000 years, nothing had dared to approach the Sol system without proper authorization. Day One expanded his consciousness, tapping into the vast network of sensors that surrounded their star system. The data was clear but puzzling. Multiple objects were approaching at faster than light speeds, using primitive drive systems that humans had abandoned hundreds of thousands of years ago. A familiar presence touched his mind, and Harin materialized beside him. Her form, like his, was crystalline, but she preferred a more fluid appearance that rippled like water caught in sunlight. They had worked together for over 10,000 years, though time held little meaning for beings like them. "The quarantine protocols have been broken," Harin announced, her voice carrying layers of information and frequencies that would have been impossible for biological ears to detect. Each word she spoke contained entire data packets of information, sharing her analysis of the situation directly with Day One's consciousness. The approaching vessels were classified as belonging to Class C civilizations, young races that had barely mastered interstellar travel. Their ships were crewed by human standards, using primitive antimatter drives and basic shield technology. But what truly caught Day One's attention was their number. Over 300 vessels of various designs, suggesting a coalition of different species. Day One accessed the defense grid, bringing online systems that had lain dormant for millennia. Massive energy collectors shifted their focus, ready to power weapons platforms if needed. But something about the approaching fleet's formation gave him pause. They weren't arranged in any aggressive pattern. "They're refugees," Harin observed, her form pulsing with concern. "Their energy signatures suggest their ships are damaged. Many are operating on emergency power." Through the vast sensor network, Day One could detect the fear emanating from the approaching vessels. Their crude attempts at communication filled the quantum channels with desperate pleas. Something had driven these younger races to do the unthinkable, approach the forbidden system of the Ancient Ones. The Central Archives hummed with increased activity as more administrators became aware of the situation. Throughout the Dyson sphere, trillions of post-humans turned their attention to this unprecedented event. Humanity had withdrawn from galactic affairs for good reasons, focusing inward on their own development and serving as silent guardians against threats the younger races couldn't comprehend. "We should alert the Council," Day One suggested, his thoughts reaching out to the governing body that helped coordinate humanity's vast civilization. The Council had existed in one form or another for over 400,000 years, adapting as humanity evolved beyond their biological origins. Harin agreed, her form synchronizing with his as they prepared to present their findings. But before they could establish the connection, new data flooded their awareness. The refugee fleet had passed the outer warning beacons, markers that should have turned away any approaching vessels with their powerful psychological deterrents. "Whatever they're running from," Harin observed, "they fear it more than they fear us." Day One expanded his consciousness further, reaching toward the approaching fleet. He caught fragments of their communications, desperate discussions in primitive languages about something called the void that was consuming their worlds. Fear, raw and primal, radiated from their vessels. The quarantine that humanity had maintained for 50,000 years was about to end. As Day One and Herin prepared to make first contact with these younger races, they knew that their peaceful isolation was coming to a close. Something had changed in the galaxy, something that had driven these primitive species to seek help from the legendary and feared ancient ones. Throughout the Dyson sphere, humanity began to stir from their long introspection. The younger races were about to discover why their ancestors had called Earth's children both saviors and monsters, and why some threats could only be faced by those who had spent 500,000 years preparing for them. In the Grand Council Chamber of Earth, 13 alien species faced the assembled human representatives. The chamber itself was a marvel of post-human engineering, its walls shifting and flowing like liquid metal, reflecting the crystalline forms of the advanced beings who called themselves humanity's children. Ambassador Wren stood at the center of the alien delegation. His species had evolved from aquatic creatures, and even now, he required a special environment suit filled with oxygenated liquid to survive. Behind him, representatives from 12 other species huddled together. Some towering beings of living crystal, others tiny creatures that floated in anti-gravity fields, and even a species of silicon-based life forms that clicked and whirred as they moved. Jin Ho, Earth's chief archivist for over 15,000 years, observed the gathering with keen interest. His crystalline form shifted through various spectrums of light as he analyzed the aliens before him. These were indeed young races. Their technology was primitive by Earth's standards, yet they had managed to breach humanity's quarantine zone out of sheer desperation. The council chamber housed 50 of humanity's most respected administrators, their forms arranged in a semicircle around the alien delegation. Each human representative existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, their consciousness spread across various planes of existence. To the aliens, they must have appeared as shifting, impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. "Please," Ambassador Wren began again, his translator device struggling to convert his thoughts into something the humans could understand. Waves of fear rippled through his environment suit, causing the liquid inside to swirl with disturbing patterns. "We come seeking help from the Ancient Ones. The legends speak of your power, of your wisdom." Jinho noticed how the other alien representatives moved closer to Wren, seeking comfort in proximity. Their terror was so strong that even the humans could sense it across the vast gulf of evolutionary difference that separated their species. "Something is consuming our worlds," Wren continued, his translator projecting holographic images into the chamber. The images showed entire star systems simply ceasing to exist, not exploding, not being destroyed, but simply vanishing as if they had never been there. "We call it the void. It started at the edge of known space, in the outer rim. At first, we thought it was some natural phenomenon, a new type of space anomaly." The holographic display showed the progression of the void across their territory. Whole civilizations had already been lost, erased from existence, as if they had never been. The younger races had tried everything: antimatter weapons, quantum disruptors, even attempting to collapse space itself around the void. Nothing had worked. "Our best scientists estimate we have less than a standard year before it reaches our core worlds," one of the silicon-based beings added, its crystalline structure vibrating with distress. "We found references in ancient ruins, speaking of similar events in the distant past. They all mentioned Earth. They all spoke of the guardians who sleep in the cradle of humanity." Jinho shared a complex burst of data with his fellow council members. In an instant, they reviewed 500,000 years of human history, focusing on similar encounters with entities that defied the normal laws of physics. The younger races would never understand just how much humanity had sacrificed to become what they were now, the price they had paid to be able to face such threats. "Show them," one of the council members suggested, their thought patterns rippling through the chamber. Jinho agreed, and with a gesture, he transformed the chamber itself. The aliens gasped as reality seemed to fold around them. Suddenly, they were no longer in a room, but floating in space, watching events that had occurred hundreds of thousands of years ago. They saw humanity's first encounters with similar entities, witnessed the terrible price Earth's children had paid to learn how to fight such things. "You are not the first to face this threat," Jinho explained, his words carrying weight beyond their simple meaning. "We withdrew from galactic affairs not out of pride or disdain, but because we needed to prepare, to evolve, to become something that could stand between existence and the void." The aliens watched in awe as the historical display showed humanity's transformation from simple biological beings to their current state as masters of matter and energy. They saw the construction of the Dyson sphere, the development of weapons that could affect reality itself, the creation of defenses that existed in dimensions the younger races couldn't even perceive. "We will help," Jinho announced, his decision echoed by the entire council in a cascade of quantum resonance. "But you must understand, what we will do, what you will see, may change how you view reality itself. Are you prepared for this?" Ambassador Ren looked at his fellow representatives. One by one, they indicated their agreement. They had come too far, lost too much, to turn back now. "We are ready," Ren said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Whatever the cost, whatever we must face, we ask for your help, Ancient Ones." The council chamber reformed around them. But now something had changed. Throughout the Dyson sphere, ancient systems began to power up. Humanity was going to war again, against an enemy they had hoped never to face again. The younger races were about to learn why their ancestors had both worshipped and feared the beings that Earth had produced. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The Guardians were awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in chambers that hadn't seen visitors for thousands of years, Archivist Sommi's crystalline form glowed softly in the darkness. The lunar archives stretched for hundreds of kilometers through the moon's core, holding secrets that most younger races couldn't begin to comprehend. The alien delegation followed her through tunnels that seemed to bend in impossible ways, their environmental suits struggling to compensate for the strange energies that permeated this ancient place. Somme paused before a massive door that pulsed with its own inner light. The aliens watched in wonder as her form merged partially with the control systems, unlocking securities that had been in place since before their species had discovered fire. The door dissolved, revealing a chamber that seemed to contain a miniature galaxy. "This is the Hall of Memory," Sommi explained, her voice translated into forms the aliens could understand. "Here we keep the records of humanity's greatest battles and our greatest failures." The chamber came alive around them, stars swirling and reforming into complex patterns. Ambassador Ren and his fellow delegates huddled closer together as the display expanded, surrounding them with images from Earth's past. They saw humanity as it once was, biological beings taking their first steps into space. They watched as these primitive humans encountered their first void entity in 100,000 AD. "The first void war nearly destroyed us," Sommi continued, manipulating the display to show massive battles between early human fleets and a darkness that seemed to eat light itself. "We were arrogant then, thinking our technology could overcome anything. We lost 40% of human space in the first year alone." The aliens watched in horror as entire solar systems vanished in the historical recording. But then something changed. They saw humans beginning to evolve, to transform themselves. The biological forms gave way to hybrid beings, then to the crystalline entities they were now. "We learned that conventional weapons were useless against the void entities," Sommi explained, her form rippling with ancient memories. "We had to become something new, something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once, something that could fight an enemy that ignored the basic laws of physics." The display shifted to show the reality collapse of 250,000 AD. The aliens saw how a desperate human experiment had torn a hole in space-time itself, nearly destroying the galaxy in an attempt to stop another void entity. The images showed how humanity had contained that disaster, but at a terrible cost. After that, we understood our role, Songmai said softly. We withdrew from galactic affairs, but not out of pride or fear. We became watchers, guardians. We built the Dyson Sphere not just for energy, but as a weapon, a last resort against things that exist beyond normal space. She guided them deeper into the archives, past rows of crystalline matrices that contained the accumulated knowledge of 500,000 years. The aliens saw records of other civilizations that had risen and fallen while humanity watched and waited. They saw the construction of vast defense networks that spanned the galaxy, hidden from younger races. Your people speak of us in legends, Songma noted, accessing another set of records. You call us the Ancient Ones, the sleeping giants. But we never slept. We were preparing. Everything we have become, every advancement we have made, has been in preparation for the return of the void entities. The chamber darkened, and new images appeared, technical specifications for weapons that could unmake reality itself, plans for devices that could redirect the flow of time, strategies developed over hundreds of thousands of years of preparation. What you face now, Songmai explained, her form pulsing with concern, is something we have fought before. But this time, we are ready. We have spent thousands of generations becoming something that can stand against the darkness between spaces. The aliens watched in awe as she accessed the deepest archives, revealing the true extent of human preparation. Throughout the galaxy, hidden beneath the surfaces of dead worlds and in the hearts of dying stars, humanity had built a network of defenses beyond anything the younger races could imagine. You fear us, Songmei observed, noting how the aliens still trembled in her presence. That is wise. What we have become is as far beyond your understanding as you are beyond single-celled organisms. But remember this, everything we are, everything we have become, was for this purpose. We are your guardians, whether you knew it or not. The archives hummed with power as ancient systems began to activate. Throughout the galaxy, hidden sensors were coming online, detecting the approach of the void entity that threatened the younger races. Humanity's long vigil was ending. The time for watching and waiting was over. Now, Songmai said, her form blazing with determination, we will show you why your ancestors both feared and worshipped us. The void entities are returning, but this time, they will find that humanity has not been idle during our long isolation. The aliens left the lunar archives that day with a new understanding of the beings they had sought help from. They had come expecting to find powerful but distant ancestors. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had transformed itself into something far more terrifying and far more necessary than they could have imagined. The war against the void was about to begin again, but this time, humanity was ready. In the command nexus of the Dyson Sphere, Defense Coordinator Taeyong's crystalline form pulsed with ancient power as he interfaced with systems that had lain dormant for millennia. The alien delegation watched from a safe distance as his consciousness expanded across the galaxy, touching machines and structures that their civilizations had never even detected. The activation sequence began slowly at first, a faint tremor in the fabric of space-time. Then, like a cascade of falling stars, long-dormant human outposts began to wake. The aliens gasped as their sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the galaxy, emanating from places they had thought empty. "Watch," Taeyong said, his voice carrying frequencies that made the aliens' translation devices crackle. "What you are about to see is the true extent of human preparation." In the Carina Nebula, a structure larger than a gas giant shimmered into view as ancient cloaking fields deactivated. It was a weapon platform that could harness the power of an entire star, built by humans when they first began to understand the true nature of the void entities. Near the galactic core, a network of artificial black holes suddenly synchronized, their event horizons pulsing with controlled energy. These were not natural formations but carefully engineered weapons, each one capable of redirecting the fabric of space itself. Our ancestors built these defenses in secret, Tae-young explained, his form shifting through complex patterns as he coordinated the awakening. While the younger races grew and explored, we prepared for this day. In the spaces between stars, vast fields of quantum-linked satellites activated, forming webs of energy that could detect and track anything that moved through normal space or the dimensions beyond. The alien ships registered hundreds, then thousands, then millions of these devices coming online. The activation continued. Around dead stars and within the cores of rogue planets, ancient machinery stirred to life. Some of these devices were so large they could be seen from millions of light years away, their power signatures blazing across space like newborn suns. These weapons platforms, Tae-young continued, were our last resort. Each one was built with a single purpose, to fight entities that exist outside normal spacetime. We hoped they would never be needed, but we could not take that chance. The alien representatives watched their sensor displays in stunned silence as more human installations revealed themselves. In the void between galactic arms, entire artificial worlds shimmered into view. Research stations and manufacturing centers that had been producing and perfecting weapons for hundreds of thousands of years. Around a distant neutron star, a ring-shaped structure larger than a solar system began to spin, its surface covered with devices that could manipulate gravity itself. This was just one of many such installations, all part of humanity's vast defense network. Your people never detected these installations, Tae-young noted, observing the aliens' reactions. They were designed to be invisible to any race that hadn't achieved at least Class A technological status. Even now, you're only seeing a fraction of what exists. The activation sequence reached a crescendo. Throughout the galaxy, ancient quantum computers began processing data, analyzing the threat of the approaching void entity. Networks that had been dormant for longer than most species had existed shared information across impossible distances. There, Tae-young said, pointing to a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red lights indicated active human installations, and the aliens finally understood the true scale of human preparation. Their galaxy was wrapped in a web of ancient human technology, all of it waiting for this moment. Each of these installations, he explained, was built with knowledge gained from our previous encounters with void entities. Every weapon, every sensor array, every defense platform represents lessons learned at terrible cost. The alien delegation watched as Tae-young coordinated the final stages of the activation. Energy levels that their instruments couldn't even measure pulsed through the human defense network. The very fabric of space seemed to shiver as weapons beyond their comprehension prepared for war. We built all of this, Tae-young said softly, because we knew this day would come. The void entities always return. That's why we withdrew from galactic affairs. Not out of pride or fear, but because we needed to prepare. Everything you see here was created for one purpose: to protect all life in this galaxy from threats it couldn't comprehend. As the last systems came online, the alien representatives finally understood. They had thought of humans as reclusive ancestors, powerful but distant. Now they saw the truth. Humanity had become the galaxy's immune system, silently watching and waiting to defend against threats that could destroy everything. The awakening was complete. Humanity's ancient weapons were ready. Now all that remained was to face the void entity that threatened their galaxy. As Tae-young's consciousness stretched across the vast network he had awakened, he knew that the real test was about to begin. The time for preparation was over. The time for war had come. In the analysis chamber of the Dyson sphere, senior researcher Minji's crystalline form shifted through complex patterns as she prepared to share knowledge that would forever change how the younger races viewed their universe. The alien representatives gathered around a central display platform, their various environmental suits and support systems humming in the charged atmosphere. Minji interfaced with the chamber systems, causing the air itself to become a three-dimensional display of incredible detail. The aliens watched as images formed around them, glimpses of a universe far older than they had imagined, from a time before humanity had even learned to make tools. "What you call the void," Minji began, her voice translated into forms each species could understand, "is not a natural phenomenon. It is a weapon, created by beings we call the precursors. They existed in this galaxy more than 10 million years ago, long before humans first walked upright." The display shifted, showing strange geometric shapes that hurt to look at, the remnants of precursor technology that humanity had discovered over the centuries. The aliens saw vast structures floating in the spaces between galaxies, machines that defied the laws of physics as they understood them. "The precursors were not like us," Minji continued, her form pulsing with ancient memories stored in humanity's collective knowledge. "They existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What we call reality was just one small part of their existence. They created the void entities as weapons in a war we still don't fully understand." The chamber darkened as Minji showed them recordings from humanity's first encounters with these ancient weapons. The aliens watched in horror as entire star systems simply ceased to exist, erased from reality itself. But then they saw something else. They saw humanity beginning to change. "Our ancestors realized that conventional weapons were useless against the void entities," Minji explained. "You cannot destroy something that exists outside of normal spacetime. But our ancestors discovered something crucial. We could contain them." The display showed the gradual transformation of humanity, from biological beings to their current crystalline forms. The aliens saw how each step in human evolution had been carefully planned, each changed, designed to make them better suited for fighting these ancient threats. "We cannot destroy the void entities," Minji said, her voice carrying undertones of frequencies that made the aliens' translation devices trained to keep up. "But we can trap them. We can create spaces where they cannot affect normal reality. This is why we became what we are now. Beings that can exist partially outside normal spacetime, just like them." She showed them the containment systems humanity had developed, massive structures that could create pocket dimensions, artificial spaces where void entities could be trapped. The technology involved was far beyond anything the younger races could comprehend, but they understood its purpose. "Your weapons cannot affect these entities because you're trying to fight them in normal space," Minji explained. "It's like trying to fight a three-dimensional being with two-dimensional weapons. We had to become something more, something that could reach into the spaces where these entities exist." The aliens watched as Minji demonstrated how humanity had learned to manipulate reality itself. Her crystalline form shifted through impossible geometries, showing them how humans had evolved to exist partially in other dimensions. "Every change we made to ourselves," she continued, "every step in our evolution, was designed to make us better guardians. We became living weapons, beings capable of fighting threats that existed beyond normal space." The display showed the network of containment facilities humanity had built throughout the galaxy, vast structures capable of creating and maintaining pocket dimensions where void entities could be safely trapped. "The void entity threatening your worlds now is one we haven't encountered before," Minji acknowledged. "But we have faced others like it. We know how to fight it. We know how to contain it. But you must understand, what you will see when we do this will change how you view reality forever." The alien representatives absorbed this knowledge with a mixture of awe and fear. They had come seeking help from powerful ancestors, but they had found something far more profound. A species that had deliberately engineered itself to become guardians against cosmic horrors. "Your civilizations are young," Minji said softly, her form pulsing with gentle light. "You see the universe in simple terms of matter and energy. We withdrew from galactic affairs because we needed to become something more, something that could stand between you and threats you couldn't even comprehend." As the briefing concluded, the aliens understood at last why humanity had isolated itself. They weren't hiding. They were preparing, evolving, becoming something that could fight battles in realms beyond normal space and time. The void entity approaching their worlds would soon face not just advanced technology, but beings specifically engineered to fight it. Humanity had spent 500,000 years preparing for this moment, and they were ready to prove why the ancient legends called them both saviors and monsters. Fleet Commander Hyunwoo's consciousness stretched across vast distances as he coordinated humanity's defense networks. His crystalline form pulsed with complex patterns as he directed thousands of ancient weapon platforms simultaneously. Around him, in the strategic command center of the Dyson Sphere, holographic displays showed the battle unfolding across multiple dimensions. The void entity had finally revealed itself, a massive tear in reality that consumed everything it touched. It moved through space like a living shadow, its edges rippling with energies that defied the laws of physics. When it encountered matter, that matter simply ceased to exist, erased from all dimensions simultaneously. The fleets of the younger races swarmed around the entity's edges, their ships tiny but numerous. They couldn't harm the void entity directly, but they could help track its movements and protect civilian populations in its path. Their courage impressed Hyunwoo. Even knowing they faced something beyond their comprehension, they refused to flee. All containment platforms, activate primary sequences, Hyunwoo commanded, his thoughts reaching across light years to ancient machines that had waited millennia for this moment. The weapons humanity had built began to power up, drawing energy directly from the quantum fabric of space itself. The first strike came from a ring of artificial black holes that humanity had positioned around the void entity's approach vector. These were not natural formations, but carefully engineered weapons, each one tuned to specific frequencies of reality. They began to pulse in perfect synchronization, creating waves of gravitational force that rippled through multiple dimensions. The void entity reacted violently, its edges flaring with impossible energies. It lashed out, erasing an entire sector of space. 3 billion stars simply vanished, along with all their planets and the civilizations they had harbored. But Hyunwoo had anticipated this move. The sector had already been evacuated. Its inhabitants moved to safe zones hours before. Deploy the reality anchors, Hyunwoo ordered. Across the battlefield, massive structures that humanity had hidden in the cores of dead stars activated. They projected fields of pure probability, forcing local spacetime to behave according to normal physics. The void entity found itself partially trapped, unable to slip fully between dimensions. The younger races watched in awe as humanity's true power revealed itself. Weapons platforms larger than solar systems opened fire with energies that their sensors couldn't even detect. The void entity was caught in a web of forces that existed in 11 different dimensions simultaneously. But the entity was ancient and powerful. It fought back with weapons of its own, concepts that could not exist in normal space, forces that unraveled the very fabric of reality. Entire fleets of the younger races vanished as space itself twisted and buckled under the strain of forces they couldn't comprehend. Hyunwoo's form flared with determination as he initiated the next phase of the battle. Throughout the galaxy, quantum-linked satellites began to pulse in perfect harmony. They created a lattice of energy that spread across multiple dimensions, forming walls of probability that the void entity couldn't easily breach. All units prepare for dimensional shift. Hyunwoo broadcast to the remaining ships of the younger races, retreat to safe distances. What comes next is not meant for normal space. As the alien fleets withdrew, humanity deployed its most terrible weapons, devices that could alter the fundamental constants of the universe itself. These were the weapons they had sworn never to use except in the most dire circumstances, technologies that could unmake reality if used improperly. The void entity sensed the threat. It tried to retreat, to slip between dimensions where the weapons couldn't reach it. But humanity had planned for this too. The quantum lattice surrounding the battlefield began to contract, forcing the entity to remain in place. Hyunwoo's consciousness merged with the weapon systems, his crystalline form becoming a conduit for energies that could shatter stars. The void entity fought desperately, its attempts to escape growing more frantic as humanity's weapons closed in. The battle reached its climax as Hyunwoo activated the final sequence. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as ancient machines, built by humans when they first began to transcend their biological forms, powered up for the first time in hundreds of thousands of years. The void entity screamed, not with sound, but with distortions in the fabric of space-time itself. It thrashed against the quantum lattice, erasing huge sections of the containment field. But humanity had prepared for this too. For every section the entity destroyed, two more appeared, the network rebuilding itself faster than the void could unmake it. From safe distances, the younger races watched as space itself began to fold and twist. The battlefield became a storm of impossible geometries as humanity's weapons forced the void entity into a configuration it couldn't escape from. Final victory didn't come with a bang or explosion, but with a subtle shift in the nature of reality itself. The void entity, trapped by forces it couldn't counter, found itself being compressed into a pocket dimension specifically engineered to contain it. Hyunwoo maintained his concentration as the containment protocols activated. The weapons that had trapped the void entity began to power down, their work complete. The quantum lattice dissolved, leaving behind a single point in space where the entity was now imprisoned, a space outside of normal reality where it could no longer threaten the galaxy. The battle was over. The younger races had witnessed something they could barely comprehend. A war fought not just with energy and matter, but with the fundamental forces of reality itself. They had seen why humanity had spent 500,000 years preparing, why they had become what they were now. As the alien fleets regrouped, Hyunwoo began the process of standing down humanity's ancient weapons. The crisis was over, but its effects would ripple through the galaxy for millennia to come. The younger races would never again question why the legends spoke of humanity with both awe and terror. In the depths of the Dyson Sphere, Project Director Jae-yun monitored the containment readings with unwavering attention. The void entity, now trapped within a pocket dimension of her team's design, raged against its prison walls. But the containment held firm. Layers of engineered reality that had taken centuries to perfect kept the ancient weapon safely isolated from normal space. The victory had come at a cost. Entire sectors of space had been erased during the battle, though thankfully most had been evacuated in time. Now, as the immediate danger passed, the real work began. Throughout the galaxy, human restoration teams worked alongside ships from the younger races, helping to rebuild what had been lost. Jae-yun's crystalline form pulsed with satisfaction as she reviewed the final containment protocols. Her team had succeeded where ancient civilizations had failed. They had found a way to trap a void entity permanently. The prison dimension was a marvel of engineering, a space that existed partially outside normal reality, designed specifically to hold beings that defied the laws of physics. In the Grand Council Chamber of Earth, representatives from all 13 of the younger races gathered with humanity's leaders. The chamber, which had once seemed so intimidating to the alien delegates, now felt almost welcoming. The crystalline forms of the human representatives still shifted through impossible geometries, but the younger races had learned to see the beauty in their strangeness. Earth's council had reached a unanimous decision. Humanity's long isolation would end. For 500,000 years, they had withdrawn from galactic affairs, focusing all their efforts on preparing for threats like the void entities. Now, with one such threat contained and their defenses proven, they could take a more active role in galactic society. Administrator Day One stood at his favorite observation post in the Central Archives, watching ships from a dozen different species navigate Sol space. The sight would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. Humanity had maintained their quarantine zone for longer than most of these species had existed. Now, vessels of all shapes and sizes moved freely through the solar system, their crews eager to learn from the ancient ones. The younger races had surprised humanity with their courage during the crisis. Though their technology was primitive by human standards, they had fought alongside Earth's forces without hesitation. They had proven themselves worthy of not just protection, but partnership. Throughout the Dyson sphere, ancient archives were being opened, their knowledge made available to carefully vetted representatives of the younger races. Humanity would share what they could safely teach, not the reality-bending weapons or dimensional technologies, but the fundamental principles that would help these civilizations grow and advance. In return, the younger races brought something humanity had forgotten during their long vigilance, a sense of wonder, of joy in discovery. Their questions and perspectives made the human scientists and researchers see their own achievements in a new light. Project Director Jai Yun found herself working closely with scientists from the younger races, explaining principles of physics that their civilizations were just beginning to grasp. Their enthusiasm reminded her of humanity's own early days of space exploration, before they had learned of the threats that lurked between the stars. The Void Entity's prison became a research station, carefully monitored by both human and alien scientists. Though the younger races couldn't perceive the multiple dimensions involved in its containment, they could learn from studying its effects on normal space. Every precaution was taken to ensure the entity remained safely contained while allowing for scientific observation. Administrator Day One's form shifted through patterns of contentment as he watched a group of alien researchers tour the central archives. Their wonder at humanity's achievements was matched by their determination to learn and understand. The future would be built on cooperation between the ancient guardians and the young races they had protected for so long. Throughout the galaxy, human outposts that had hidden for millennia began to welcome visitors. The weapon platforms and defense networks remained vigilant, but now they were joined by research stations and cultural exchange centers. Humanity had emerged from their long isolation not as distant gods or fearsome warriors, but as teachers and protectors. The victory over the Void Entity marked more than just the end of a threat. It marked the beginning of a new era. Humanity had spent 500,000 years preparing to fight the darkness between the stars. Now they could focus on building something new, a galaxy where ancient wisdom and young enthusiasm worked together to create a better future for all species. As the last light of day filtered through the Dyson sphere's energy collection panels, Administrator Day One reflected on how much had changed. The quarantine that had kept humanity isolated for 50,000 years was over. In its place, a new network was forming, not of weapons and defenses, but of knowledge and cooperation. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in centuries, it was filled with hope. The ancient guardians had proven their worth, and the younger races had proven their potential. Together, they would face whatever challenges the universe held, not just as allies, but as friends.